Chapter 5: The Phantom Rider. The moonless night stretched endlessly over the plains, casting the land in a deep, oppressive darkness. The only sounds were the soft rustle of the wind through the sagebrush and the occasional call of a distant coyote. It was on nights like this, old Hank whispered, that folks claimed to see him, the Phantom Rider. A lone figure, galloping across the plains, shrouded in mist and vengeance, righting wrongs that had long been forgotten by the living. The campfire crackled as Hank leaned forward, the flickering flames casting long shadows on his weathered face. His voice lowered to a near whisper, drawing the travelers closer, their faces tense with anticipation. "They say the Phantom Rider's a ghost," Hank began, "but I reckon he's more than just a story. He's the spirit of a man who couldn't rest, a man named Silas Blackwood. And like most legends out here, his story begins with betrayal." The tale of Silas Blackwood. Silas Blackwood was once a man like any other, a rancher, proud and strong, who made an honest living working the land. He had a small spread just outside the town of Clearwater, nothing fancy but enough to get by. For years, Silas lived in peace, keeping to himself, until the land barons came. Greedy and corrupt, the land barons of Clearwater were hungry for more land, more control. They wanted Silas's ranch, his cattle, and the water that flowed through his land. Silas refused to sell. He stood his ground, despite the threats and the underhanded deals that were made in the shadows of Clearwater's saloons. One night, under the cover of darkness, everything changed. The barons sent men to Silas's ranch. They set fire to his home, drove off his cattle, and left him for dead in the smoldering remains of everything he had built. Silas fought back, but he was outnumbered, and by dawn, there was nothing left of his life but ashes. The town of Clearwater turned a blind eye. The sheriff, paid off by the land barons, did nothing. Silas was left broken, betrayed not only by the men who had wronged him but by the very town he had trusted. But vengeance is a powerful thing. Silas's spirit, unable to rest, refused to leave this world. And so, the Phantom Rider was born. The Phantom's Return. The first sightings of the Phantom Rider came shortly after Silas's death. On moonless nights, when the plains were as black as coal, folks claimed to see a lone rider, cloaked in mist, galloping across the horizon. Some said he rode a horse as dark as night itself, its hooves never touching the ground. Others swore they heard the sound of gunshots and the chilling cry of justice being served. At first, the townsfolk dismissed the stories as just that, stories. But then strange things started happening. The land barons who had conspired against Silas began to disappear. One by one, they were found dead, each in a more gruesome fashion than the last. Some were trampled by invisible hooves, others shot through the heart with bullets no one ever heard. And in the distance, always, was the faint outline of a rider in the mist. The town of Clearwater, once thriving under the rule of the land barons, fell into a state of fear. No one knew who would be next, and whispers of the Phantom Rider's vengeance spread like wildfire. The sheriff, desperate to bring peace back to the town, sent for help a wandering lawman by the name of Tom Cassidy. Cassidy wasn't one for ghost stories, but he was a man who believed in justice. When he arrived in Clearwater, he found a town gripped by terror, its streets empty after dark, its people too frightened to speak the name of Silas Blackwood. But Cassidy wasn't afraid. He knew there was more to the legend than met the eye, and he was determined to uncover the truth. The lawman's investigation. Cassidy began his investigation by talking to the few remaining men who had been involved in Silas's betrayal. What he found was a trail of guilt, deceit, and cowardice. The barons had taken everything from Silas, and now, it seemed, they were paying the price. But Cassidy didn't believe in ghosts. He suspected there was a living man behind the legend of the Phantom Rider, someone seeking justice in the only way they knew how. And so, he followed the clues, piecing together the truth of what had happened the night Silas died. Late one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Cassidy found himself at the ruins of Silas's old ranch. The wind howled through the charred remains of the homestead, and for a moment, Cassidy felt the weight of the past pressing down on him. But he wasn't alone. Out of the shadows rode the Phantom Rider, his figure silhouetted against the dying light. Cassidy reached for his gun, but something stopped him. The rider, though ghostly and shrouded in mist, didn't make a move to attack. Instead, he sat tall in his saddle, his eyes, if he had any, fixed on Cassidy. "Silas," Cassidy whispered, his voice steady despite the fear that gnawed at the edges of his mind. The rider didn't speak, but Cassidy could feel the weight of his presence, the burning need for justice that had kept Silas tethered to this world. Slowly, Cassidy lowered his gun. He understood now Silas wasn't out for revenge. He was out for justice, for the truth to be known. "Rest now," Cassidy said softly. "I'll see to it the town knows what really happened. You don't have to ride anymore." For a long moment, the Phantom Rider remained still, as if weighing Cassidy's words. Then, without a sound, he turned his horse and rode off into the night, disappearing into the mist as quickly as he had come. The campfire crackled, its flames casting long shadows on the faces of the travelers who sat around it. Old Hank leaned back, his voice soft and reflective. After that night, the Phantom Rider was never seen again. Cassidy kept his word. He told the town what had really happened, exposed the truth behind Silas's betrayal. And with the barons gone, Clearwater found peace again. But folks still talk about the Phantom Rider, especially on moonless nights. They wonder if Silas finally found the justice he was looking for, or if he's still out there, riding the plains, waiting to right the next wrong. Hank's voice trailed off as he looked into the flickering flames. "Justice is a funny thing," he said after a long pause. "Sometimes it's clear as day, and sometimes, well, it's like riding through a fog. You think you've found it, but when you reach out, it slips right through your fingers." The campfire crackled once more, and the desert wind whistled through the sagebrush, carrying with it the faint echo of distant hoofbeats.